Today on Locked On Rockies, Purple Row breaks down some big bounce back candidates for the Rocks. Just how impactful would these specific players be if they have successful seasons in 2025? Plus, this takes my breath away. Trade Brenton Doyle? Trade Michael Toglia? That's what a YouTube commenter asks.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 26th day of December in the year 2024. I'm one of your hosts. I'm filling in on radio, producing over there this week. So I got radio on the brain, I think. I'm the only host of the Locked On Rockies podcast. I mean, if you know of anyone else hosting the Locked On Rockies podcast, let me know. Our boy Nilo Piro does the Locked On Rockies postcast and all the other postcasts for Mile High Sports and Locked On Rock, all the Locked On Colorado Sports there. So you can check those out, and you'll get to see those for the Rockies again coming up in baseball season. But as a total sidetrack, if you make content, right, that's how this week goes. It is loosey-goosey. It is fire on the microphone, see where it takes you, because that is where the Locked On Rockies podcast is going to start for today. Your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show by heading on over to the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section, firing off your Rockies hot takes. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies. If you want to be part of the show, that's the best way to be part of it. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. We're going to dive into a couple of them and more on today's episode, including a piece from Purple Row highlighting a couple of bounce-back candidates for the Colorado Rockies. And we're going to dive into all of that and more. Before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets. If your first $5 bet wins, visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we're going to get started here. Purple Row, Mac Wilcox writes, Colorado's bounce back candidates. And this just posted earlier today. And they're the obvious ones. 2 out of 3 are the obvious ones. But I really want to emphasize and kind of set the stage for why this year can be so different. And it is emphasized by, if these players bounce back, the Rockies will be in a good spot. I guess it really will depend on what your definition of good is. It will be record dependent, XYZ. There will be a million things. But my point is, the big highlight and the big thing, or at least a part of this article, talks about health of the players. And so the 3 candidates that Mac highlights are Justin Lawrence, Nolan Jones, and Antonio Senzatella. But that list can go deeper and deeper and deeper. If a healthy Chris Bryant contributes, what does that mean for the Rockies? If the Rockies are able to get Estrada healthy, contributing at the level that he's contributed to other teams, what does that mean for the Rockies? I mean, there's so many factors, and honestly, what does good continued health for Brenton Doyle and Ezequiel Tovar mean? We've already seen Brenton Doyle have a couple of things flare up, a couple of issues, and come nagging and such. But I don't want to get too distracted there. That's what opens the door for so much bounce back for the Colorado Rockies this coming season. I think we forget how, again, banged up the Rockies have been. How many times they've had to mismatch things together. So when we're soaking in the glow of hope of offseason Rockies talk and getting ready for another year and all that stuff, the health of the Rockies ideally will be in a much different spot than it was when the season finished, or the middle of the season, or where the Rockies started last year. So it's something where when you're looking for reasons to believe that players can bounce back, that's a good place or a good thing to at least keep in mind. And let's start here with I agree here with these 3 could change the They really could. I mean, you guys are going to sit here and think you're crazy to say that those three players, Antonio Senzatella, Nolan Jones, and Justin Lawrence, if they have good seasons, the Rockies completely turn it around. Yes, it's not completely, but they're a much better team in a much better spot. Say Antonio Senzatella has a good to career year, which again, his career WAR isn't all that high when compared to Freeland and German Marquez. But if he's able to be a 2-win, a pitcher that on the third day that you can count on, yeah, he'll be third, I would imagine, in the rotation, unless if Gomber, depends. Anyway, he's not going to be a guy that's going to, you're going to be over there. But if he can be a positive contributor to the Rockies, that's better than the rotation was last year. It's a better option than you've had in the rotation the last 2 years. If Justin Lawrence improves on a horrendous last year and is able to get back to form, and as Mac points out here, talking about really utilizing what he's successful with, he can be a very effective veteran bullpen piece for this Rockies team. Because here's the thing. Justin Lawrence is entering a season where if he improves, if he bounces back, then you're kind of getting the vibe of, all right, this is a bullpen piece that we can rely on a little bit more. It's been shaky, and this is a total prove it year for him. I mean, the whole season, not just a couple starts. We need Justin Lawrence to have a complete and successful entire campaign next year. And there might be a little worries in the back of your head, but if he shows you through a bounce back season, the Rockies don't blow 5-run leads late in games. The Rockies don't blow late leads, because who was a big contributor to the reason why the Rockies blew leads late? It was the performance of Justin Lawrence last year. And here's what Mac has to say here about Justin Lawrence. FanGraphs projects the right-hander to record a 4.63 ERA and a 4.38. I don't even know. Was SI ERA? There's another one there. But both of which would be improvements. While these would be acceptable numbers, I actually think J-Law, and this is, again, I'm reading from Mac Wilcox here on Purple Row. I actually think J-Law will be even more effective if he can retool his wipeout sweeper, a pitch that's keeping hitters to a sub-200 batting average against and helped him garner one of the league's best ground ball rates. His advanced metrics also paint some of his difficulties as the result of bad luck when comparing expected stats, so we'll see if he can get more favorable results next year. So right there, even in just there, you have enough to kind of still hold on hope that Lawrence can grow. And if Lawrence is good next year, then the Rockies have a closer. If a successful season, a good season of pitching for Justin Lawrence means the Rockies have someone who can close games, or that they've found, and they're using the young guys and doing the same type of thing they closed last year out, and Justin Lawrence has settled into a seventh, eighth inning role where he excels, where he does great, where he is prime. The arm movement, the sweeper, and the ground ball rate are all encouraging enough signs for you to sit there and at least buckle up for what should be, at least the prime candidate for the biggest bounce back. And if he does do that, it's going to change the way the Rockies close out and finish ball games, something they struggled to do last year. Again, turning to Justin Lawrence to close those games, of course. I understand that. But again, if it's a bounce back season for him, the Rockies are winning games. They are closing out those 5-run leads. They're winning those 2-run, 3-run games, 1-run games in the bottom of the ninth. So let's see. Up next on this list, Nolan Jones. And this can't be understated enough, folks. I mean, Nolan Jones 2 years ago was arguably the best player on the Colorado Rockies. He was the most successful player by basically leaps and bounds. He was a 4.3 WAR player last year, or 2 seasons ago. If you factor that into this, that was a better season by WAR than anybody on the team last year. Like, I mean, that is something that you sit there and if the Rockies can have the Brenton Doyle of last year play with the Nolan Jones of 2 years ago, folks, that is an exciting young outfield. That is a reason for you to sit there and be absolutely superbly pumped about. Those are two 2020 guys, And Nolan Jones being someone that can probably, you'd argue even could do more damage. Two guys that can drive in runs, play elite defense, are young, play a tough outfield, and can really impact the game with defensive abilities. And that's what gets the energy flowing if you're a Rockies fan. That's what gets you excited. It has to come together. There's still obviously the concerns. I mean, Nolan Jones had a bunch of health stuff as well. We were talking about, again, health, the importance of health, how a healthy Rockies team is a better Rockies team this year. Here's something from here's some stuff from Mac here from Purple Row. Arguably the most obvious pick for this list, Jones busted out in 23 with one of the most impressive rookie seasons in recent Rockies history, but cooled off significantly in his sophomore campaign, owed in a large part to a high strikeout rate and some nagging ailments. This was a steep drop for someone that had been in possible consideration for Rookie of the Year honors, and it was disheartening for Coors faithful to see a fan favorite outfielder struggle so mightily. The good news, it's not likely to last, at least not to that degree. Jones' batted ball profile actually paints him in a better light, showing productivity not too far off from teammate Ezekiel Tovar, one of Colorado's best players last season. He's hitting the ball hard, and he remains one of the team's most imposing power hitters. There's a hot bat there ready to do damage now that he's had time to readjust. Max says, I'm not just saying that either. Nojo has been open about the work he's done to prepare himself for next year, and there's reason to believe that kind of mental fortitude will help rejuvenate the former Guardian to get back to doing what he does best at the plate, hitting dingers. If his offensive production can catch up to his stellar defense, he'll rightly reclaim his spot as one of Colorado's most feared hitters. Cutting down on the Ks will be priority 1A in this endeavor, but he appears to be on the verge of breaking out and returning to his 2023 form. FanGraph projects him to finish with a 2.3 WAR, and that certainly seems achievable for Nolan Jones. And if you're curious, if he does hit that, that's like almost a full, like, he was negative. This is, I guess I don't have FanGraphs in front of me. So Baseball Reference, he was negative 0.7. I mean, that's a huge swing, and if he finishes with that, that's a contributing, that would be a contributing result. I know it for a fact. There's one more name on this list. Let's talk about him coming up next here on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. I know you've signed up for some stuff. It's the holiday season. There's a million streaming services needed to watch all the sports out there. You probably have forgotten about something that you signed up for. It brings everything together, Rocket Money, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. You can learn more about reaching your financial goals and how to cancel those unwanted subscriptions when you head to rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. And you can be part of the show by firing off your Rockies hot takes in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comments section. All you got to do, head on over to Locked On Rockies on YouTube there, and you can fire off your comments there. And you'd be best, be great, be super helpful if you could subscribe as well. For your second listen of the day, go check out our pal Sully for Locked On MLB. If you missed it, we did do a crossover last week talking about if the Rockies could be a Cinderella story next year in a very, very crowded NL West. He also took you to the ballpark for a playoff baseball game as his Christmas episode yesterday, which was really cool. And of course, plenty of Colorado sports here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs. Getting all that coverage all on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Okay, so we were talking about bounce back seasons. We're talking about big possibilities here. And we talked about Nolan Jones, talked about Justin Lawrence here. Mac really hitting it out of the park with these two. But here's an interesting one in Antonio Senzatella. The brief glimpse we got last year showed us that Senza's plan of attack remains the same. Fastball, fastball, fastball with few off-speed pitches thrown in once in a while. The good news is that his heater is a very solid offering, or at least it was prior to his injury. It's for this reason that Mac, maybe optimistically, have got Senza pegged for a comeback coming this year. Like Mario grabbing a heart in Bowser's Castle. Wait a minute. Okay. Yep. Okay. I got a little confused because I was going like, how's that a Mario thing? But of course, 3D Mario Odyssey getting the heart, of course. Okay. And it's, little, for those, if I take Mario a little too seriously. Anyway, total sidetrack thing. What did I say at the beginning of the show? You just see where it takes you. Let's see. Let's go back to what Mac is writing here. He previously served as one of Colorado's most efficient ground ball specialists, and it's Mac's suspicion that he'll do it again in 25. Now that the Venezuelan righty has had some time to get his body back in order, he can get back to inducing weak contact and keeping his fielders engaged. With Gold Glovers up the middle and capable defenders all over the diamond, Senza is primed to pick up where he left off. I think is the underlying great point about that. I think it's the thing that I haven't thought about enough when I've thought about evaluating Antonio Senzatella is the fact that this defense is going to be nasty. Like this Rockies defense, another reason, again, we're opening up the bag of hope here. On paper and with plenty of examples, the Rockies have shown us that this defense is legit. This defense is something that's going to be great. And when you mix it with the profile and what makes Antonio Senzatella successful, weak contact, let your defense help you out. If those two could form a very nice harmony, which would be a nice little mix-up there for the Rockies as well during there. I think it works better when you have Herman in there because Herman can give you a 10 strikeout game. I know the Rockies aren't a dominant strikeout team, but I hope that having these two guys come back, it adds the depth and it adds a little bit more, just a little bit of variety between everything. Because if Senza is able to do what he is the best at, which is, his weak contact, this defense those two are really going to be able to peanut butter and jelly it. You know what I mean? Great as individuals in certain areas. Put them together, boom, it's going to be something serious. My biggest, huge concern, and this is not only with Senza, this is with every single member of the Rockies rotation. Herman, Kyle, the whole nine. Gomber, whoever's in the fifth spot. Home runs, man. Like, I still worry greatly about the home runs. That is going to be, when you're talking about bounce back for any Rockies pitcher, when you're talking bounce back success for Senza or Justin Lawrence or anybody, I don't even care what their home run numbers were last year. It's just such a big constant threat focused on the Rockies. It's such a big magnifying glass, moment for the Rockies. If this team cannot limit the long ball, if this team cannot induce the weak contact that it is supposed to be its main goal, it's gonna get real difficult for the Rockies to win ball games. Like this team, as much as the pairing of Senza and the defense can work really well, it's not going to pair well with this Rockies rotation and with the Rockies in general to keep having the anemic offense. It's not going to matter if just these three guys bounce back in the grand scheme of things. It's going to take a lot more. These three guys can set the tone and set the stage, which will and really help out depth wise as you go to the day to day. But it's not going to matter much if the Rockies don't break out a little bit more. Like we need to see to really be super confident. Some of these guys don't just need a bounce back year. They need to show some dominance. Like Nolan Jones coming back at a 4 WAR again, it would be the thing where you start to say, holy smokes, Like this guy can be it. This guy is legit. There's just still too much unknown. But bounce back when it comes to big picture long run type stuff, but bounce back seasons it's from these three guys set the stage. But the list goes even further. Throw Chris Bryant on there, throw Ryan McMahon on there, and you're going to be like, but he was an all-star. I want to see the freaking bounce back from the first half. I want to see the Ryan McMahon bounce back of being the guy. So I know it's a little weird to say that, maybe a little heavy-handed, but still. The bounce back season for Estrada, bounce back season for Romo. There's how many bounce back. I mean, the context matters for all those guys, of course. But there's so much room for improvement. There's the idea of a ceiling hasn't really started to form yet. Because because the easy thing would just be to just say, well, it's still the Rockies, it's still it's still that. Just throw them right as a mid-range teams as always. But if these guys can grow, if these guys can continue to improve and go to that next step, if the Rockies have three guys that are 4+ WAR, and maybe even more so, depending on the pitchers and depending how it goes for them, that's huge. That's a huge amount of improvement for the Rockies down across the board. So you can get more information there from Mac and Purple Row by heading to purplerow.com. Colorado's bounce back candidates, Mac Wilcox writing that piece. It's right there. You can't miss it on the front page. So, all right. An interesting question from a YouTube commenter. That's what we're going to dive into coming up next. The answer might be a little obvious, but I don't know. We'll have to see. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we get to that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here. Fingers crossed for Bo and our boys. Come on now. But it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. That means you could check out live betting. You could check out parlays. You could check out some prop bets. You can see what works for you, all on the easy-to-use and secure FanDuel app. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to join today for your chance at $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. And remember to please play responsibly. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. I got to drink a little water there. The old voice creaking out on me a little bit there. But anyway, Locked On Rockies, third segment. And here is a question from Nick B. Dodgers. So I think that's where this might come from here. Would the Rockies trade Doyle or Tolia, and what would that return look like? There's just no possible way that's on the horizon, at least for this year and probably next year. I mean, to answer your question, it's really hard to know if the Rockies would even entertain that. And when you say what would the package be, I don't have a good answer for you. The Rockies trade history, especially when you're talking about a player of the caliber of Doyle or Tolia, who is nowhere close to having the amount of time for you to make a full-fledged decision about him if you're not going to commit to him at first base. I don't have a lot of history of the Rockies making these type of deals. And again, I don't necessarily know how successful the Rockies would be in those efforts. I think what we have seen, I mean, we can give Bill Schmidt credit for the trade deadline of 2 years ago with how many trades he was able to make and just the sheer there. The massive trades for the Rockies that I can think of haven't always panned out. albeit the cargo deal was something that panned out. But the biggest thing, and people will bring it back, is Tulo, or not Tulo, is Arenado. And then, Tulo, I think, is a little bit more complicated with some of the stuff. It's been a while since I actually remember what the deals were, because there are people that know that stuff better than I. But regardless, they're not going to trade them because they're youngsters and they really believe in these guys and what they're going to bring and what they can do for the Rockies. And they wouldn't trade them because, I mean, it's the loyalty thing. I mean, they are just so loyal. I mean, they don't, like, there's plenty of things that they could have done. I mean, Trevor Story thought he was being traded, and then for John Gray to just walk, I bring those up all the time, I know, but those are kind of like prime examples, right? Where it's just like Trevor Story was great, knew he wasn't coming back, injury stuff, there's some stuff that you can compare it to. And then John Gray, solid arm, solid talent, and expressed interest in wanting to be back, and then just didn't get done. So the answer is no, they would not trade them. But the question of the return, I think, is one that is a little bit more complicated. The Rockies historically have overvalued their players. The Rockies, feels like there's only specific teams they trade with more often than not. So I don't know. I can't imagine the Dodgers in the name. I would be shocked if the Rockies ever traded a star player to the Dodgers. like talk about one of the quickest ways to just like upset an already upset fan base would be to do something like that. And these trading big names and trading big stars and trading high profile guys is something that the Rockies should be better and should be more well versed in and should be more willing to jump in on. But it's also going to bite you. I think the Padres are a perfect example of a team of that. But they're also an example of a team that's been interesting with fascinating storylines about for like darn near a decade, if not more so now, since they really bought in, went out and got Machado, started making all those moves. The Padres are a cursed team, but envious of them in that respect, though. All right. Thank you for the question there, Nick. I appreciate that. And all right, let's see. Anything else? Mark here says, wait, this isn't Locked On Royals. No, it's not. It's Locked On Rockies. But thank you so much for tuning in. Now we'll wrap it up here, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back. Schedule will be a little different next week, Monday through Wednesday. I believe will be the schedule posting times, but the holidays, weird times, off-season stuff. That's how it goes. We'll be rocking and rolling. You're going to get your episodes, though. Don't you worry. But we're going to be wrapping things up here for today's episode. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB with our guy, Sully. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Until next time, folks, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.